abadde mu parliament amazemu ekisanja kimu n'ebyobufuzi abiruddemu era abitegeera. N'olwekyo sirowooza nti alina kyeyakoze ng'akikoze mu kiwuggwe, ate okuba nga buli kyeyakoze yakyebuuliriddeko era akitegeera. Katumwagalize birungi olugendo lwatandise, naffe balese eno tumusaba atusabire tusigale eno ku lukuusi nga tusobola okukola bye tukola. Enjawulo yokka ku nkola ye naffe amu gye tulowooza eri nti okusala obusaze eddiiro, kubanga mbadde ndowooza nti Honorable Nsibambi akanya naffe abamu nti waliwo ekizibu etaaga okusalira amagezi mu bukulembeze bw'eggwanga lino. Ebizibu ebimu biri mu nkola, ebirala mu mateeka. N'olwekyo sirowooza nti ekyokwegatta obwegassi ku NRM kimalawo obuzibu obwo. Kisobola okuba nga kimalawo obuzibu obw'obuntu n'obw'omuntu omu, naye tikisobola kumalawo bizibu bye twogerako nga abaagala enkyukakyuka. Era gye yatandikira twali tulowooza nti FDC ng'ekibiina kyakkaanyiza okukola kityo, naye gye biggweredde atuyambye, nabo ne batuyamba noga nti Kanso Yusufu ensonga yiye ng'omuntu. Njala kusaba nno bannange bwe twagala enkyukakyuka, tembeera etuuse ku muganda waffe era saala kulowooza nti bamutadde mu muguwa. Ensonga ezimu zaayogerako naffe natuzaagala, ng'okutabagana nga bannayuganda, ng'okulekeraawo okutwala abantu mu makomera olw'obutakkaanya mu byobufuzi n'embeera eyefuga bbi. Ffenna tubyagala, naye waliwo ekisooka. Tosobola kusaba nkoko bwana bwayo nga tebyese magi. Abantu bayogerako abali mu makomera, mubadde wano mu parliament. Bwe nayira opposition ndooza nalwana nnyo okujja abantu abangi mu makomera, era bangi baateebwa, abalala baasulibwanga ku kkubo, abalala twabagirangayo mu kkooti. Ekyo kigaanya okwongerayo abalala mu makomera. Kiba kitegeeza nti ekizibu tekiggwangawo, ekizibu kya byabufuzi. Nze ne bannange mu DF tulowooza nti emboozi y'ebyobufuzi erina okulinnyisibwa okusinga okutambulira mu kwegaana n'okugamba oba baganya okuwuliriza kambe egatteko. Sirowooza nti kye kinamalawo ekizibu ky'ebyobufuzi mu ggwanga, okuggyako buli omu okuwuliriza munne ne bannaffe abeekomeza obuyinza okugula amatu bawulire nti embeera embi bw'ejja mu ggwanga buli muntu esobola okumunyiga nabyo esobola okubanyiga, neerabya n'okwerabira nti waliwo ababeegaseeko. So Kanso Yusufu tumwagaliza obulamu obulungi, kasa tunasisinkananga ng'abantu bw'anaaba alina byasobodde okukyusa eggwanga lirimwebaza.
Mumuwanye mubadde mukola ki naye emyaka gino gyonna? Nze nnumwa buli lwe tufiirwa abamu ku bannaffe, ku balwanyi bannaffe ne bagenda naddala nga tetutegedde ensonga. Mpa nnyo Jeno Mugisha muntu ekitiibwa. Kigambibwa nti bwe yali agenda okufuluma FDC yasooka kukubira Dr. Besigye namugamba njagala kukulaba. N'agenda amugamba nti teweekanga bino tobiwulirira ku radio. Ngenze ensonga zange ze zino naziri. Bwe nali nfuluma DP ne tiimu gye nagenda nayo nasooka kukubira Honorable Norbert Mao. Ne twogera at length ne mugamba we have disagreed in principle. Nze nfulumye ekibiina. Nimugamba saagala okirabire ku mawulire. N'okutuusa olwaleero njogera ne Honorable Norbert Mao on matters ezitugatta ng'eggwanga. Bwe mba musisinkanye nga Minister wa Justice, nga somebody gwe mmanyi gwe nkoze naye, gwe bankuba naye tiyagasi mu mmotoka yange naki. Ekyo tekimpagiza byawe wagira, tekinjagaza byayagala, naye tusigala twogera. Olunaku lumu lugenda okukya nga byayagala byenjagala ebimu ng'ebyo bitugatta. So okugenda kwa Mwami Nsibambi ze kunnumye. kunnumye kubanga twetoddeko Museveni alabika nga yatusinga numbers afuba buli lunaku okusika okutwala batwala ffe abayina abatono tugamba tutya nti n'abo abatono bwe batugendako tuba tubawonye sikiraba nga kyamagezi.
And the population opposed to the government of Uganda. I think these two needs to be given a very clear demarcation. My own thinking is that over the years, the opposition to the NRM leadership has been growing geometrically. When I say geometrically, it's more than exponential. And that is explained by so many factors, including but not limited to the changes in the country's demographics, to violation of human rights, to economic decay that has occasioned poverty across the masses, frustration in the rank and file of the population that generally wants to see something different, something fresh. And of course, the decline in intuition and imagination in the NRM. All these are visited desire need for change that has been growing over time. And if you survey the nation, you'll discover that there are more people who desire change in the immediacy than yesterday. So it's not fair to say that the opposition has reduced. What has been changing shape, character, motivation, and imagination is the leadership to the opposition in the country. I think that's where we need to have a very serious conversation as to what became of leadership. We have, over the last couple of years, seen a shift from serious leadership that offers an alternative to the nation to mere speculators, gamblers, noisemakers that offer no hope. For me, that's where the problem is. So you have a bunch of political speculators calling themselves political opposition leaders, and they have turned the country politics into a casino. That does not offer hope to the population I've talked about that wants to change. Those who want to see change don't simply want to see change in faces. They want to see change in quality and the options offered. The two, the faces and the quality of leadership, must move in the same direction. I think that's why we have an issue. Otherwise, what General Museveni spoke about, I think, having frustrated the need for change by organizing checkered elections like the one we just had, which was extensively flawed. In fact, for me, the biggest fraudulent election since, I think, independence, or since, I should say, since probably I started participating in the elections. He has every reason to say, I have done enough to frustrate them and render them incapable of offering alternatives, because he's been working on it. The movement of the Honorable Nsibambi and others should never be used as a measure to determine, let alone compare or even postulate the need of Ugandans for change. I have immense respect for Councillor Yusuf Nsibambi. I know he's not acting impulsively, as some people are saying, because he lost an election. He's well aware of his decision. I'm very sure he thought about it variously. And all we can say is to wish him luck. My invitation to those who want to see new faces on the Uganda political scene and in the government is not to give up. The movement of an individual or even a group should never deter the desire to articulate the need for a new Uganda with a better imagination. Invariably, politics frustrates. But I dare say, it's only those who will withstand the shocks of adversity, including frustration, that will give the country a political new look. Otherwise, if all of us are going to get cowed, get frustrated, fear to offer the alternative, withstand hostility, withstand shocks, withstand frustration, then probably the apocalypse of General Museveni will come to pass. Otherwise, for me, there are no shocks, no surprises. It is what politics is about. But Ugandans must also know that you need to have a stand in life. Probably that is the council for the stand. What I do not understand from him is whether he's joined to complain from within, or is content that now things are better, he can join. That's the problem, and I've not spoken to him to understand his sense of view. Probably I can understand him better. I am not a speculator, and I dare say that politics is not a casino where people should go and gamble with their ideas. What you invest or what you sow is what you harvest. The opposition must, for its own survival and for the good of this country, up its game in terms of the quality of leadership it offers, in terms of the inner workings of the opposition, in terms of how we articulate the issues across the country, and in terms of how we approach the whole idea, the whole concept of opposition. Opposition should not be relegated to noise. Opposition must be understood from the context of the difference in the quality of ideas we bring across to change the face of this country. In particular, in the shape of the options we give to a young population that is desperate and desirous of change. The opposition should be able to articulate a very clear and elaborate political agenda with very clear policies that will migrate the frustration of our common peoples to think anew about the opposition. We saw the low turnout of voters in the last election. That communicates some, not simply despondency, but frustration. That actually an election is prepared, is organized to facilitate the outgoing to be the incoming. It is the duty of the opposition to sit down, eat humble pie, talk to each other, really think about how we deal with our disagreements, and offer the country hope. I have no doubt in my mind that the opposition, properly anchored, properly organized, with a well-articulated message, we can turn around our fortunes. And the happenings of the day are well calculated. The NRM is aware that if you take one of us, it of course leaves a gaping hole conceptually and practically in what we do, because if you build and then break, it's not, in our situation, it cannot be kujenga na kubomoa. We need to sustain, we need to build and sustain what we are doing, because any break off our hard work is a step in the wrong direction. So, but I have hope, not in the leadership of the opposition, in the citizenry, to even demand for better quality from the opposition, to be able to re-anchor and redirect our sails as they. I think you are taking me into political theory. We are dealing with the practical nature of our current politics. You will never probably separate politics and interests, okay? And for a fact, because so many of our political actors are hypocritic, they hide their interests behind, common good and all that. But eventually, when you pursue them to their heels, you discover that indeed it's self-interest at the helm of their agenda. The quest for us to raise the bar speaks to us to the need to raise politics beyond our own personal pursuits. But like I said, for you to be able to get that point, you must engage into self-education, either as an organization or as individuals, that when you eventually meet, your spirits have served the collective and you have self-educated to best understand what needs to be done. The beauty in our situation is that every political group has tested the fact that it doesn't help anybody to play selfish. That however much you expend energy and time and resources inward looking, you eventually fall on your own belly or back. And therefore it serves common good to listen to each other and understand how best you can bring your collective energies together and suppress the weaknesses of individuals. Commonness will suppress the small personal pursuits, and then common good will prevail.
What do you speak to the narrative that the road to end the opposition in Uganda has been so smooth for the NRM chairman?
If you understood my understanding of the opposition, then I dare say that the NRM chairman has misread the notes. He's probably read the cover, but not the text. The opposition is beyond leadership of what you see. And I dare say, as day follows night, you're going to see leadership of the opposition evolve. And I have no doubt in my mind that at some stage, opposition to the NRM will hit the right button. Deploying one dog to pursue so many beasts at the same time, and that spreads our energies too thin. The elephant in the room is governance of this country. Unfortunately, we do not have enough prisons to accommodate every dissenting voice. Therefore, it is foolhardy to imagine that whoever is dissenting will be sent to jail. And if the judiciary elects to use that, or if it's being real cornered to do that, then perhaps some of the judicial offices will turn into jails because we don't have enough space. So what I can imagine is that the whole thing about arresting young people and political dissenters has to do with our failure to deal with opposition to each other. As leader of the DF, I led my team prior to these elections, and we offered and documented our idea of how we should go about governance in this country. We offered a three-tier approach to the political contradictions in this country. We called out for constitutional and political reforms, including governance reforms, that would precede the transitional conversation, and then reconciliation will be the last thing. Reconciliation happens after admission of a problem. You can only call for reconciliation when you have understood there is a problem. And at the DF, we contend that there's a problem. For some reason, there are those who want to run away from that problem. We should not be beginning from reconciliation. We must start with solving a serious political problem. After every actor admitting that there's a problem. The whole idea of winner takes all, that a particular group will appropriate political power onto themselves and muzzle every space, political, civic, and otherwise, including business, from everyone, is something that will put this country at a cliff. So I contend that reconciliation can only be an outcome of a conversation of what has gone wrong. Because if we politicians reconcile without reconciling the politics, you'll have more young people in jail. And for me, that is actually putting the cart before the horse. It's problematic. Reconciliation is good, but it begins with the canvassing around and understanding and appreciating what has gone wrong. Which is why a conversation about what has gone wrong with our political legislation, our mutilated constitution, will then give way to subsequent conversations, including debating the idea of the transition. That we fear to debate in this country, the fact that power can move from one person to another is problematic. And if we believe that when you join the NRM, you have solved a national problem, then we are lost. I think joining solves the personal problem. And I respect those who join solve personal problems. I want to deal with the national problems. And that's our space at the DF. Honorable Nsibambi, musajja munnamateeka, si mwana muto, nandibadde mu parliament amazemu ekisanja kimu, n'ebyobufuzi abiruddemu era abitegeera. N'olwekyo sirowooza nti alina kyeyakoze ng'akikoze mu kiwuggwe, ate okuba nga buli kyeyakoze yakyebuuliriddeko era akitegeera. Katumwagalize birungi olugendo lwatandise, naffe balese eno, tumusaba tusabire tusigale eno ku lukuusi nga tusobola okukola bye tukola. Enjawulo yokka ku nkola ye naffe amu gye tulowooza eri nti okusala osaze eddiiro, kubanga mbadde ndowooza nti Honorable Nsibambi akanya naffe abamu nti waliwo ekizibu etaaga okusalira amagezi mu bukulembeze bw'eggwanga lino. Ebizibu ebimu biri mu nkola, ebirala mu mateeka. N'olwekyo sirowooza nti ekyokwegatta obwegassi ku NRM kimalawo obuzibu obwo. Kisobola okuba nga kimalawo obuzibu obw'obuntu n'obw'omuntu omu, naye tikisobola kumalawo bizibu bye twogerako nga abaagala enkyukakyuka. Era gye yatandikira twali tulowooza nti FDC ng'ekibiina kyakkaanyiza okukola kityo, naye gye biggweredde atuyambye, n'ondi batuyamba noga nti Kanso Yusufu ensonga yiye ng'omuntu. Njala kusaba nno bannange bwe twagala enkyukakyuka, tembeera etuuse ku muganda waffe era saala kulowooza nti bamutadde mu muguwa. Ensonga ezimu zaayogerako naffe tuzaagala, ng'okutabagana nga bannayuganda, ng'okulekeraawo okutwala abantu mu makomera olw'obutakkaanya mu byobufuzi n'embeera eyefuga bbi, ffenna tubyagala. Naye waliwo ekisooka, tosobola kusaba nkoko bwana bwayo nga tebiise magi. Abantu bayogerako abali mu makomera, mubadde wano mu parliament. Bwe nayira opposition ndooza nalwana nnyo okujja abantu abangi mu makomera, era bangi baateebwa, bala baasulibwanga ku kkubo, bala twabagirangayo mu kkooti. ekyo kiganya okwongerayo abalala mu makomera kiba kitegeeza nti ekizibu tekiggwangawo ekizibu kya byabufuzi nze ne bannange mu DF tulowooza nti emboozi y'ebyobufuzi erina okulinnyisibwa okusinga okutambulira mu kwegaana n'okugamba oba baganya okuwuliriza kamba egatteko sirowooza nti ekyo kinamalawo ekizibu ky'ebyobufuzi mu ggwanga okuggyako buli omu okuwuliriza munne ne bannaffe abeekomeza obuyinza okuggula amatu bawulire nti embeera embi bw'ejja mu ggwanga buli muntu esobola okumunyiga nabyo esobola okubanyiga neerabya n'okwerabira nti waliwo ababeegaseeko so Kanso Yusufu tumwagaliza obulamu obulungi kasa tunasisinkananga ng'abantu baana balina byasobodde okukyusa eggwanga lirimwebaza.
I mean, I have not left the opposition. People live for different reasons. Ask him for his reasons. On the question of radicalism, when you radicalize and start eating yourselves up, I don't think it is sensible. So if you are sensible, don't eat yourselves up. That is where I will agree with him. But people have different strategies. There is a group that feel radicalism is the way to go. You give them a chance. If what stops people from talking, except if some are not willing to talk? I mean that you are noob, so you can't talk to DP, you can't talk to FDC, you can't talk to PFF for a common cause, for a common agenda, for common aspirations. Then you would have something fundamentally wrong with you. If you say you can't speak to NRM, that's a different layer. But even NRM, what stops you from talking to them, at least for those areas where you think these are areas of common interest? I have seen, you remember when Ethiopia had a civil war?
Yes, most recently.
Most recently? You remember when Ethiopia was fighting with Eritrea?
1989.
Nobody could bring down an ET plane. That was an area of common interest, common aspiration. That this is the lifeline of our country, don't touch it, even when you're angry. So even when I'm angry with Museveni, I know that there are certain things I will not touch. I want to target and go for him, deal with him and destroy him politically. Deal with him, destroy his ideology politically. But if you're going to fight Museveni on one hand, then you're going to fight all the others in the opposition. Yeah. Something is fundamentally wrong with you. I think to that extent, I agree. But radicalism, diplomacy, that's a strategy. Mumuwenye mbadde mukola china emyaka gino gyonna. Nze nnumwa buli lwe tufiirwa abamu ku bannaffe, ku balwanyi bannaffe ne bagenda naddala nga tetutegedde ensonga. Mpa nnyo Jeno Mugisha muntu ekitiibwa. Kigambibwa nti bwe yali agenda okufuluma FDC yasooka kukubira Dr. Besigye namugamba njagala kukulaba. N'agenda amugamba nti teweekanga bino tobiwulirira ku radio. Ngenze. Ensonga zange ze zino naziri. Bwe nali nfuluma DP ne team gye nagenda nayo nasooka kukubira Honorable Norbert Mao. Ne twogera at length ne mugamba we have disagreed in principle. Nze nfulumye ekibiina. Ne mugamba saagala okirabire ku mawulire. N'okutuusa olwaleero njogera ne Honorable Norbert Mao on matters ezitugatta ng'eggwanga bwe mba musisinkanye nga Minister wa Justice nga somebody gwe mmanyi gwe nkoze naye gwe bankuba naye tiyagasi mu mmotoka yange naki ekyo tekimpagiza byawe wagira tekinjagaza byayagala naye tusigala twogera olunaku lumu lugenda okukya nga byayagala byenjagala ebimu ng'ebyo bitugatta. So okugenda kwa Mwami Nsibambi ze kunnumye kubanga twetoddeko. Museveni alabikanga yatusinga numbers, afuba buli lunaku okusika okutwala baatwala ffe abalina abatono tugamba tutya nti n'abo abatono bwe batugendako tuba tubawonye. Sikiraba nga kyamagezi. I do not want to join those who chorously say good riddance when we have lost someone we've worked with for so many years at a very senior level. It's a very, very disheartening development. He has exercised his right to choose where to belong to. It is his right to associate with those that he wants to associate with, that want to associate with him. But for me, I mean, it has hurt me. He's not somebody, he's not a man of straw, where I would say, that one we lose nothing. Museveni seems to have numbers. He does not only celebrate, but he goes out to fish more from us who have few. We can't celebrate. But now, now that he has taken a decision to go, to leave, my response is that it is a sad development. How I wish he had stayed.
Does this justify some of the statements the president has been making that he will slowly finish the opposition?
Well, Museveni has been competing with the opposition. Slowly or not, I don't think he has the capacity to finish the opposition. The opposition is not about us, the leaders. The opposition is about those of us who do not agree with him. He can continue fishing, but we also have been fishing from him in our small ways. I mean, if you have people like Majegere, people like the Honorable Kaluya, who crossed over from NRM to join us, you cannot say it's a mean achievement. It's a big one. But looking at the global picture, I think it should be about a contestation of ideas. If the Honorable Nsibambi and some others have seen things differently and they have decided to go, wish them luck. They have exercised their right, they have made their choice. I can only say choices have consequences. The peaks and drops. That's my worry and concern. And of course, when we liberate the country, we'll also liberate those that have crossed over to it. I mean, my choice is to liberate Nsibambi, liberate Anita, my daughter, the Speaker of Parliament, liberate Taibwa, the Deputy Speaker. All those are our children. Liberate anybody who has crossed over to NRM, but also liberate Museveni himself by bringing him our way. And now, the question is, are we organized enough to do that? I answer that in the negative. We now just